Let's learn how the while loop works in C#. I'm going to create a brand new project. File, new project. Make sure it's C# and a console app. And I'm going to name it while loop. Press enter. And let's go ahead and start the program. I added some comments just to help you remember what it does. The while loop is a preconditioned loop. In other words, it's like the for loop, that when you drop into the loop, you check the condition first to see whether or not to execute the code attached to the loop in the braces. That means you might do a while loop and the code in the braces never gets executed because the expression doesn't evaluate to a true. Let's see how it actually works. While, parenthesis, and then you have some expression. Let's say we had a variable, as long as I count was less than 3, drop into this loop and do some work. Well, what if I count was equal to 5? It would drop to this loop, check the condition. Is 5 less than 3? False. So it would not execute anything inside this bracket, and instead it would just continue over that loop. I'm just going to add a console.readline there to pause the screen when we run later on. And so it would just skip this and jump to the line that follows the loop. And that's because it's a precondition. It checks the condition before it does the loop. I'm going to go ahead and set that back to 0. And let's prompt the user to enter in a number. And we'll say, how many names to enter? And then we're going to go ahead and get that data and store it to the variable iCount. And so that's going to be a console.readline. But remember, console.readline returns a string. So you need to convert that to an int. And we'll do an int32. That will get the data. And then let's say, as long as some other variable, let's create another variable up here, int inum, we'll set that to 0. As long as inum is less than iCount, or in other words, as long as some number, some variable is less than the number that they typed in from the keyboard, let's drop in and execute the loop. And so here, what I'll do is I'll ask them to enter a name, and then we'll go and get that data. Once again, I need another variable. We'll make it of type string, sname. Sname is equal to console.readline. So that will get the name from the keyboard. And then I can go ahead and print off the name is, and we'll concatenate or add on the data we just typed in. So this logic says, ask the user how many names they want to enter, go get that number from the keyboard and convert it to a number because it was a string, store it to the variable iCount. As long as this count is less than whatever they typed in, execute this data inside the braces. What's the problem with this loop? Well, the first time through, inum is 0. Let's say the user types in 3. Is 0 less than 3? True. Execute the loop. Is 0 less than 3? True. Execute the loop. Is 0 less than 3? True. Execute the loop. An hour later. Is 0 less than 3? True. Execute the loop. In other words, on the while loop, you're responsible for incrementing that variable, that counter. So somewhere you need to increment it. You could come right here and say inum plus plus. That would solve the problem. Let's go ahead and run it and see if it works. How many names to enter? 3. Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. Works great. What if I wanted to display the number inside the right line? Then one thing I could do is actually say for name, and then concatenate on that count. I'm going to drop it to the next line so you can see it all. But once again, the variable is not being incremented. I want to increment it. If I do an inum plus plus and run it, a post increment, Watch what happens. 3 names, Mickey. So it says 4 names 0. The name is Mickey. I need to add a space there. Enter a name. So in other words, it still started at 0, and it would stay in there 3 times. Maybe I want it to actually show, change that, maybe I want it to show the number incremented before. In that case, I'll do a post increment. Now let's run it and see what shows. 3 names, enter a name. Mickey, for name 1, the name is Mickey. Donald, for name 2, the name is Donald. Goofy, for name 3, the name is Goofy. That's a good example of how you could use the post increment within a loop. But remember, the while loop is a precondition loop. It checks the condition before it drops into the loop. You're responsible to maintain the counter that keeps you in the loop. And if you want, you can use that precondition or post condition or do anything else you want with that counter. But the key is this expression is what will keep you in the loop, and you better make sure you take care of the counter to determine how many times to stay in. That's the while loop.